So good morning, everybody. You're all very welcome to our first webinar in our Literacy Open Doors series. So this series is specifically designed for people who are working and volunteering in the community and voluntary sector. Now, I know there's a couple of colleagues here from the public sector, and you're obviously very welcome here today as well, because many of you are working on the ground in communities as well, at that grassroots level, or working, of course, with the community and voluntary sector. So I suppose the reason why for us in NALA we're really focused on the sector is because you're really the people that are in the heart of communities across the country. You're on the ground, you hear how people are doing, you know the issues. So we're really aware of how much many of you are working in organizations that really are a safe place for people to get information, support and signposting maybe onto public services or information from yourselves directly. You might be doing casework and things like that. And I suppose for us, we're hoping this series gives you an opportunity to hear from your own colleagues in the sector and their experience of trying to be more literacy friendly in their work. So really what that means is just becoming, and many of you will be doing this already, but being aware of maybe the reading and writing challenges that people are facing. Maybe they're struggling with numbers and maths, working out their bills, dealing with debt, or of course, digital challenges, which we know are very common amongst many people in communities across Ireland. And I suppose we're talking about how when you become aware of some of this and you start to look around your organization, your services, your projects, your groups, and you start to see maybe some barriers that are there for people who have literacy needs, and then looking about, okay, how can we remove them, reduce them down? And this could be anything as simple as giving people, instead of giving people a form to fill out themselves, from your service, it could be you sitting down and taking the information from them and doing the writing part of the form. Or it could be for registering at events. When people come in the door, sometimes we're given, again, a sheet of paper to write our name and our email address on. And instead of asking people to do that, you can have the list of names and just take people off. So it's really small stuff that can make a big difference for making people feel comfortable. And we really are talking about small changes. There's a lot of overworked people and under-resourced people in the community and voluntary sector. So it's about small strategic changes over time that can have a big impact and make people feel really comfortable in your service and know that, despite how they might find reading and writing challenging, that they'll be able to contact you and to use your projects and services. So without further ado, today's webinar is about financial literacy and financial inclusion. And our speaker today is Aoife Foley, who is the National Financial Inclusion and Social Policy Worker with National Traveller Money Advice and Budgeting Service. That is a mouthful. So for short, it's NTMABS. And so before joining National Traveller MABS, Aoife worked in the adult and community education and has a background in human rights law. So Aoife's worked on the ground in literacy and numeracy community education, has a wealth of experience from that perspective as well. And also Aoife is on the board of the National Adult Literacy Agency. So we know Aoife very well. So thank you, Aoife, for today, for joining us and giving us your time. Would you like me to share the slides, or would you like to share your slides before we get started?
Will I ask you to do it, Derv? Just my internet isn't behaving as happily as it should be this morning, so I apologize for that.
No worries, I'll just get those up now.
And just while Derv is doing that, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming, and thanks to Nala for asking me to do this as well. I should get Derv to introduce me all the time. That was a great introduction.
Now, can you see those slides?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Thanks, Derv. And one of the things that I just want to echo before I start that Derv said there was about small things. This is all about small changes. There's nothing overly, anything that I'm going to be talking about today is going to be done on minimal budget, minimal input, which I think is really important as well, because the sector we work in, we all have to work. We're all overworked and underpaid and underfunded, so we have to do the best with what we've got. Just to kick off, I just want to explain who National Traveller MABS are. If you want to click on there, Derv, just you can go through them as I'm talking. So it's who we are. So you might have heard of MABS, the Money Advice and Budgeting Service. we're a slightly different company in that our focus is specifically on the financial inclusion of travellers. So we're part of the Money Advice family and the Citizens Advice Service. We're funded by the Citizens Information Bureau. And we work to reduce poverty, discrimination and financial exclusion of travellers. And that's by working with the community themselves and then with the organisations. But everything that we do is from the ground up. So it's all directed essentially by the actual community. And Derv, if you want to go on there, sorry. So our role basically is we have 4 kind of main parts, and that's to highlight issues over indebtedness and exclusion from financial institutions, to promote alternative methods of money management, to promote things like savings, credit unions, things like that. Then it's to empower travellers to access legal and affordable savings and credit, and to build capacity within the community. And then it's to support both the MAB services and the Citizens Advice Services and the traveller community, so that everyone feels comfortable with the service, basically. And that's just a little bit of background as to who we are. And then we kind of have 4 main areas of our work. If you want to click on there again, Derv, sorry. So we do community education, support and development, research and policy, and information provision. But everything that we do really comes through education. It's all community education. Even our research and policy work informs our community ed. Our support and development support informs our community ed. And then it's giving people the information that they need in a way that they actually understand it. And our theme this morning is about financial literacy and financial exclusion. And I just want to kind of delve into them a little bit, just so we all know what we're talking about this morning. So financial literacy, what is it? And financial literacy, the official definition that we have is people's ability to process economic information, make informed decisions about financial planning, wealth accumulation, pensions and debt. Oh, sorry, Derv, if you want to click on there. The other thing is then, basically to break it down, what we say in MABS is financial literacy is understanding how money works, how it's earned, managed, and it's spent. Is I suppose that's putting our literacy hat on, is breaking this down into a very easy, understandable thing. So, and a lot of us might say, oh, I'm financially literate. I understand how my money is earned, how I manage it, how I spend it. But it's a lot more than just spending it. It's the management. It's how am I spending it? Am I saving? Am I spending it responsibly? Am I thinking about the future? There's a huge, financial literacy is a huge piece. It covers everything, and no one person has all the answers when it comes to financial literacy. And I think that's something that everyone needs to be aware of. And it's, again, with financial literacy, it's giving people the information that they need a lot of the time then and there, because things pop up and suddenly it's like we're talking about pensions and you may never have thought of a pension before, and now suddenly you need to find out what's a PRSA, how does a PRSA work, what's a work scheme. So it's very rare that all our financial literacy, all the information that we need is all in one place. It's a lifelong process and it depends on your stage of life, everything. And Derv, if you want to go on to the next one for me then, which is financial inclusion. So financial inclusion, then it means that people, businesses have access to useful, affordable financial products and services that meet their needs. And that's transactions, payments, savings, credit and insurance delivered in a responsible and sustainable way. And access to a transitional account is the first step toward financial inclusion, because it's a gateway to other financial services. And that's the World Bank's definition of financial inclusion. But it's financial literacy is a huge part of financial inclusion, because the products can be there. So we know that there are different savings accounts, there's credit cards, there's overdrafts. We know there's different insurance products, but do we have the skills to understand what all of those things actually are? So just because a provider is providing these services, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily accessible to people if they don't have the financial literacy skills to understand it. So if someone comes into a bank, a credit union, insurance, and they want information about something, handing someone a leaflet isn't necessarily enough because they might not have the literacy skills to read it. And I'm sure, as many of you know, if you've tried to read it, very little of it is in plain English. You could use a lot of it is very confusing. So financial literacy is a really cornerstone part of financial inclusion, and it's a piece that we are always very, very mindful of in National Traveller Mabs when we're going about our work. And I suppose that's the core part of our work in National Traveller Mabs is education, and it is getting information out to the community in a way that they can understand very easily, very quickly, and be able to make their own decisions then based on the information that they have. If you want to click on there, Derv, sorry. Yeah, so that's our community education. So it really helps as well, I think, the local services, because the services then are hearing from us about the issues that people are having, and then we can go back to them. So one of the examples that I can give from that is we did a piece of research about insurance. And basically, outside of car insurance, there was, among the community, there was very, very little knowledge of any other type of insurance products. So that has led to us developing an education resource. So there is a booklet, but there's also really short videos. Majority of them are less than 2 minutes long. And it's just to give you the information of what is PPI, what is life insurance, what is life assurance. Just really simple little pieces, and we'll have a look at a few of them later just so you can see what I'm talking about. And Derv, if you want to move on. So the first thing I put up here, particularly because it's NALA, is plain English. So one of the core pieces with National Traveller Mabs is every new staff member that comes in gets plain English training, because it's really important that the information can be passed on to people in a really clear, concise manner that they can understand first time reading. And with financial things, that can be very difficult, but there are ways to break it down really, really simply. And then when we're talking about literacy, we're talking about plain English, it's how we present the information. It's not just about the words. And one of the things that we have found in National Traveller Mabs is that people respond better to leaflets, to booklets, if the imagery that's being used, if people can see themselves in it. So one of the big piece of work that was undertaken a few years ago by National Traveller Mabs was to work with traveller organisations, individual travellers across the country to come up with a library of images. If you want to click on there, Derv, there's kind of 2 slides you can click between. But the idea was we had an artist commissioned who met with the groups, who drew the images. This is just a very kind of small selection of them here, and on the next slide. But the response that we had to those images was kind of unbelievable, because when people saw themselves being on the leaflets, people were drawn to it. And they were happy to pick them up. They were happy to chat. They were happy to approach us at information stands. And that was something that we saw firsthand, all the staff members, was how much when we introduced that kind of graphic imagery, it made people kind of feel a bit more relaxed, because they felt kind of seen. They felt like, oh, okay, that kind of looks like people I know. That looks like my lived experience. because stock images from a lot of sites, depending on kind of the groups that you're working with, they might not necessarily work. So for example, we did a working entitlements guide earlier this year, and part of the imagery that was used in it, when we went back to the community to get feedback before we published it, a lot of the feedback that we were getting back was, well, this fella's kind of wearing a suit and tie. And
Travel insurance explained. Travel insurance is like a safety net for your trips. It's there to help you out if unexpected things happen while you're traveling, like getting sick, missing a flight, or losing your luggage. When you get travel insurance, you pay a certain amount of money, called a premium, to an insurance company. If something goes wrong during your trip, the insurance company can help cover the costs so you don't have to pay for everything by yourself. There are a few main types of travel insurance. Single trip travel insurance. This type of insurance covers you for a specific trip. It starts when you leave home and ends when you return. It's great if you're only going on one holiday. Annual multi-trip travel insurance. This covers you for multiple trips throughout the year. So if you're a frequent traveller, this can be more convenient and cost effective than getting insurance for each individual trip. Travel medical insurance. This is important if you're travelling abroad, especially to places where your regular health insurance might not work. It helps cover medical expenses if you get sick or injured during your trip. Cancellation insurance. If your plans change unexpectedly and you can't go on your trip, this type of insurance can help you get your money back for things like flights, accommodation, and other prepaid expenses. Lost luggage insurance. If your baggage goes missing or gets damaged during your trip, this insurance can help you replace your belongings. Emergency evacuation insurance. This is crucial if you're going to a remote or risky location. If something really serious happens and you need to be evacuated for medical reasons, this insurance helps cover the costs. Personal liability insurance. If you accidentally damage someone else's property or cause harm to someone while you're travelling, this insurance can help cover legal and compensation costs. When you're choosing travel insurance, make sure to read the policy details carefully and understand what's covered and what's not. Different plans might have different levels of coverage, so pick the one that best suits your needs and the type of trip you're taking. It's like having a safety net that lets you explore the world with a bit more peace of mind.
That's the travel insurance one, and we're just going to share another one about the mortgage protection insurance as well.
Jerv, Aoife's back in. Can you make a
Oh,
call?
yeah. Aoife, are you with us? We'll just check now.
I am, yeah. Sorry, everybody. My broadband decided to die, to be honest. So I apologize for that.
We'll get you back on the slides now.
Yeah. And I think you were just looking at the videos there, some of the videos, and I just, as we're there. So like those videos are made with a program called Biteable. They're done, you can customize the colors. So you can see the little robot guy in those ones was green. So all the insurance ones have a little green robot. So they're all kind of grouped together. But there's a huge amount of free videos. Like those videos literally take about 5-10 minutes together. They don't take a huge amount of time. The clips are all pre-prepared for you. You change your colors, you put in your text, and there's a little microphone button on it that you can record your audio, and then you can put music, behind it as well. But as I said, they're really short, they're really easy. And a lot of the programs now, even Canva, have AI built into them, so that if you have your text, it'll actually give you imagery. And you can change it if you want, but if you need to get something out very quickly, it's a really handy tool to have in your back pocket for if videos and things like that. And the other thing with videos is you don't have to have little cartoons. It can be you sitting at your desk recording the information for someone on your phone.
people don't want to necessarily see slick, shiny, overproduced videos. A minute or two with the information that I want from someone who's speaking in very plain language, who, you know, is a real person. People connect with that a lot more. So having that is difficult. We go with imagery in our office purely because no one wants to get on camera. I hate putting my voice to them, but they are very good, and they're a really good way of reaching people as well. One of the things we do with them, why we keep them so short, is we use them on WhatsApp, because we put a video out. It was I can't remember what the video was about, but it was a really short video. And my boss came back into me maybe 2 days later, and she was like, "Oh, that video, did we put that up?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Someone had screenshotted the video from where they had seen it, and it had been shared and shared through WhatsApp groups and family groups, and it had made its way back to my boss. Now, it had been cropped and different things that you didn't know it came from us, but it was about the message. It was actually about the banknotes, the English banknotes being taken out of circulation." So there is, while we may think, okay, people mightn't have the literacy skills, they mightn't have the digital skills, but it's amazing what people can do with a mobile phone, even if they don't have literacy skills, because you can talk to it, because you can hit the screenshot button. It's a really invaluable tool for the community sector to kind of use, because it's cheap, it's there, and it's very easy to hit mass kind of communication. And a lot of the time, you can't measure it, that metric of how many times it's been shared on WhatsApp, if it's been screenshotted or whatever. But when you're dealing with your service users, with your clients, you'll be surprised how often it comes back. Like when we were preparing for this webinar, myself and Derv were chatting, and when Brexit came out, we had was a little bear that used to wave and dance to explain the postage changes and things like that. And we were at a project visit relatively recently, and a woman came up to me and she was like, "Oh, you're the dancing bear." And I was kind of looking at her, I didn't know what she was talking about. And then she explained all these videos that she'd seen about Brexit, because she used to be posting things to her son and they'd be posting stuff back. And that was where she had picked up that information. So it's surprising the way people connect with stuff that you might necessarily think that they are. And I think it's really important that we do connect with people, that because things like videos, even like leaflets, a little bit of colour, having images that people see themselves and feel it's not someone in a suit and tie, it's not overly professional, is really, really important, because it does make a huge difference to people. So, Derv, if you wouldn't mind going on to the next piece for me. So one of, as I said, the kind of cornerstone pieces that we do is money management, community education courses, and we have sort of two main ones. So all the courses that we do, there's always going to be budgeting, saving, borrowing, dealing with debt, and tackling legal and illegal money lending. Because for people who have low financial literacy skills, there is a much higher likelihood of them accessing legal and illegal money lenders rather than going through a bank or a credit union, because it's easier, it's quicker. There's generally much less forms to fill out. If it's an illegal money lender, there's no forms to fill out. So it seems easier for people. And then because we work with the traveller community, we always advocate the use of materials that are designed for working with travellers. So, and I go through a way of life and overcoming illegal debt. But I think it's really important, with whether it's financial literacy, digital literacy, literacy on its own, to actually, the materials that we're using, we do need to tailor them toward the group that we're working with, irrespective of who that group is. Because little things that I learned when I came to work with National Traveller MABS was the difference between, so we would be talking about budgeting, and we would say, your budget. So how much does your rent cost? And it'd be up as house rent. And just by changing the word house to accommodation, the engagement within the groups changed dramatically, because a lot of the people in the groups weren't necessarily living in a house. They were living in trailers, they were living in emergency accommodation scenarios. They weren't living in a traditional, bricks and mortar house. And I think with the housing crisis, with everything that's going on, I think that's something that can actually be applied across the board when we're talking about stuff like that, to use the word accommodation or the place you're living rather than saying your house, your home, because that can be really triggering for people. And it has been a big piece of learning that I have had, to actually see how much it does affect people, and particularly when there's literacy issues as well, it's kind of an added barrier to add in. So when we're talking about, like I said, being designed for working with travellers, they would be the changes that we make. Also, all of the resources that we use, so they come from the community, the ideas come from the community, then we write them up, we get imagery, but then it goes back to the community. We have consultative groups across the country. We have 6 consultative groups, and they would give feedback on the stuff that we're producing, so that we know we're not going to offend, we're not going to alienate people. I know that isn't necessarily a mechanism that every group has at their disposal, and we're really lucky to kind of have that, but it is really important. So Derv, if you want to go on to the next slide, I'm just going to go through a way of life. So a way of life is our main money management education course. And if you want to look at it, the manual is up on the National Traveller MABS website. And everything in it is adaptable. It is being updated at the moment. So some of the case studies in it are a little bit out of date. But it will all be up there, and that version of it is up there at the moment. So a way of life is a money management resource for travellers. And how it works is there's a couple of different modules in it, but it looks at income, it looks at budgeting, it looks at savings, it looks at borrowing, it looks at banking. And they're the kind of 5 main modules in a way of life. Each module then is broken down, but there's no worksheets as such in a way of life, because a way of life is fully designed for delivery to groups where there is literacy issues. So we know it's 1 in 4 in the majority population. Within the traveller community, that's much higher. And if you want someone to come into a course to kind of learn, to take something out of it, if you know there's going to be literacy issues and you have literacy heavy manuals, worksheets, that puts people off. So the way each module works is, and each module is led by a MABS money advisor or someone from National Traveller MABS, sometimes both. But we always try to have someone from the local MABS there, so that they're building a relationship as well with the group. But each module, so it's based on, as well, the MABS person is bringing the information, but it's also based on the fact that every participant in the room is surviving every day. They have money, they spend money, they have to live. So there's a huge amount of information already in the group. And I think anyone who's ever worked with anyone who has a literacy issue, it's amazing the coping mechanisms that people develop to hide the fact that there might be a literacy issue, and to get past it. So that is one of the things that we would work as well with the money advisor before they deliver it, so that they have the skills to facilitate that kind of a session. Because we don't look at it as a teaching kind of delivery, it is a facilitation. It's to facilitate a discussion. And from that discussion, there can be information. The information could be coming from one of the MABS
advisors, it could be coming from the participants, and it's always useful. A lot of things in A Way of Life as well, there are, it's very visual. So there are cartoon strips, you know, rather than reading a long case study that you kind of follow through. There's flashcards in it, again, with imagery rather than words. And then obviously there is words in it. There are worksheets as well, but it might be explaining an ESB bill. So there's the ESB bill and you're explaining this is where your name is, this is where the amount you owe, things like that. But by and large, it is it's a facilitation manual, I suppose, more than anything. It also gives information in it about the community, about the culture, about why there are financial issues there. But one of the big things, as I said, is that it is a discussion piece, and it's amazing it's amazing the feedback that we've gotten from it. So one of the ways that this program was rolled out was through traveller primary healthcare projects. So that would be in each area there are local projects where the workers go out to the community and they bring, it's normally health information to the community. They also provide a huge other service. But we trained the primary healthcare workers in different projects with A Way of Life. So then they had the information. Now they weren't giving people financial information. That's not. But they had the basic knowledge, and they were able to say if there had been an issue in a particular area with money lending, they were able to say, well, you know, that you can go to the credit union and this, or that there's a specific product like the It Makes Sense loan, which was for people on a social welfare payment that they could apply. Now, all the other criteria for lending applied to it as well, but it was a much more straightforward process, and it was for people who didn't have a credit history and who needed to borrow small amounts of money. Or like in Limerick, the Good Shepherd have the no interest loan scheme for purchasing, you know, if the washing machine breaks, it's all small amounts under 500 euros. And they were able to bring that information in Limerick. They had never heard it out to people who were then able to avail of it. Pay, not only was it meeting their immediate need of getting the actual thing that they needed, the cooker, but because they were paying it back, it built up a credit score for, you know, for them that they'd never had before. And this was all information that was able to be brought out through the community. And that's kind of the whole purpose of A Way of Life, is to provide the basic information, and then also to bring the MABS message of, you know who MABS are, you can come in, you can chat to us, because a lot of people thought MABS was a money lender before we kind of started reaching out, and we're going, well, I'm staying away from them because they're a money lender. Then the next one, Derv, if you don't mind going on to the next slide, is overcoming illegal debt. So overcoming illegal debt is a standalone module. It's based, because accessing illegal debt is a very personal, it's private. It's actually, how it works is there's a video. It's a 15-minute long video. It's on our website, on the YouTube channel, actually, if you can access it. And the idea is, it goes through a scenario where money lending has arisen and what the outcome is and a way of avoiding it. And the idea is to stimulate conversation. So this whole purpose of the overcoming illegal debt one is purely conversational. There's no writing, there's no worksheets, because it's about where can I go to access legal credit? What are the pitfalls of illegal? And it's all done through a visual medium. And as far as I know, now this was produced before I came to National Traveller MABS, but as far as I know, there was some funding from the Community Fund to produce that piece of work. So there is kind of things out there. And Then if I go on, sorry, because I'm conscious of the time as well. If you just want to click through maybe the next 2 slides for me, Dervy. Yeah, if you go on to the next one for me, actually, yeah. So they're just examples of leaflets that we make. So those ones would be the videos as well. So the idea is to keep everything bright, keep it engaging, keep it short. With the leaflets, it's things like breaking up. Can you go back one slide, Derv? Sorry. Yeah, so these leaflets we using different colors to break up the different sections, using headings, making it's applying all the plain English teachings, I suppose, of the slides. And then the next slide, sorry, is the videos. They're just kind of idea, but it's to keep it all super bright. But with obviously the thing is as well is to avoid it being childish. So we're appealing to adults. That is and it's about financial. So we don't want the stuff that we're producing to be childish. They're produced for adults by adults. And that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind when you are doing stuff like that. That slide, sorry, I actually came to that before I realized. So that's just about our consultative groups that we have, that kind of checks and balances. And if you want to go on to the next slide for me, Derv, it'll make more sense. So some of the work that we would do with the consultative groups, it's like we did a Facebook series with Rest Limerick Resources, and that was the group came up with the questions for us each week. And then our support and development worker, Denise, recorded it with them. It was recorded over Zoom. They maybe took an hour or two to prepare because we were all working kind of remotely. But again, it was the reach of it was unreal. So there was a 6-week series. We put them on Facebook. West Limerick Resources put them on their Facebook. And they were getting a lot of traction, but then they were getting much more traction being sent through WhatsApp. Was huge. So it's, I suppose, looking outside the box, there was no cost at all associated with producing these. And like I said, it maybe took an hour or two to produce each one from start to finish. So there are tools there. And again, if something is live, if people can ask questions, it makes it so much more impactful, and people were able to submit questions. And one of the things that we used with it was, well, how do you submit questions if your literacy skills aren't great? You're not going to necessarily want to type a comment. So again, we use WhatsApp for that. People can send a voice note. So the WhatsApp number is there. If someone has a question, you can send it in and we will address it in next week's one. So it's using, I suppose, the tools that we have, the tools that are there to actually reach people. Because as I said, the amount of people who with massive literacy issues who can use a smartphone because they can talk to it and the smartphone talks back to them. And that is a really useful tool to reach people where there is a financial, irrespective, where there is a literacy issue. It doesn't have to be a financial one. And it's kind of a handy tool. Again, it's, I suppose, everything that I kind of gone through there, there are all those small things that Derv was saying. There's nothing there other than the overcoming illegal debt video. There was a budget for that. But everything else, it was short, sweet. It's done using free sites. Our videos are recorded on an iPhone. There's no cameras or anything like that. So I think that's something that when you sit down and you're kind of thinking, what can I do? Is there something that I can do? If you think of the obvious things first, which is really hard to think of sometimes, but it's really easy to do a lot of the stuff now with the phones in a really quick way. And I think my next slide is if there are any questions that anyone has.
Perfect timing.
And my email is there as well. If anyone after the fact has any questions or wants to reach out, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you so much, Aoife. That was really, really brilliant to hear all of there's so many things that changes and I suppose things that you do in National Traveller Maps to make sure you're being inclusive as possible. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to pop it in the chat or you can ask on the mic, just unmute yourself there. Um, someone just saying in the chat here about the good idea of using short videos. Yeah, we highly recommend it. And like Aoife said, the glossy, you'd be surprised, the glossy produced videos, they're not as relatable to average people in their lives, and stock photos, anyone that's had to use stock photos, I've never seen people so happy in the workplace in some stock photos. It's so funny, or like eating or something. They can be just way too over the top. And so it's a great idea to build your own, like you did, Aoife, with the library of images. Like, I know that wasn't photography, but you could do it with photography. So it's really smart.
Yeah, and on the photos too, so many times the photos look like models, like three
Yeah, very
male or
clearly.
female models, and it just, I don't know, it doesn't
It
look that
looks
real.
fake. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I just struck there, and please do, anybody that has a question, I'll keep asking questions until you do. So pop them into the chat or get on the mic. But it just struck me there, you said about the consultative committees or the consultative groups. And you said you were lucky, and I was like, it's not luck, it's hard work. um, those kind of groups don't create themselves. But and it can be, it's always challenging to get people together and to especially people who have a lot on, a lot of responsibilities or a lot of stress. But we would say the same in NALA. We have a student subcommittee in NALA in our organization, and many amazing student ambassadors who we've worked with over the years, who we literally would not be able to do our work without them, because we just cannot see what they see and we cannot understand from their point of view. So yeah, just definitely highly recommend that structure, or some way of doing that, even if it was once or twice a year for certain pieces of work you're doing.
Yeah, I should just come in and say that our consultative groups aren't a full-time piece where they all have their own jobs and work that they're doing as well. And what we aim to do is meet with them twice a year, unless there's a specific project, and then we'd work that out kind of with them.
Yeah,
because you do have to be mindful of everyone else's time as well.
absolutely. But I suppose it just runs through the entire presentation, Aoife, that lived experience piece, and making sure that people see themselves in the work or feel comfortable. It's, I think that's something we can forget. And sometimes people are doing it, they want to be professional. They actually, they want to give someone a quality service, or they want to present themselves in a way that they think it shows quality or something like that. And it's interesting because that can actually not be the case. It can be very intimidating if you're wearing very formal, clothes in the workplace in certain places and things. So I think that's quite interesting how we might view it, and then how the people we were working with might.
Definitely.
Aoife, Deirdre McCarthy said, thanks very much, Aoife, a very human delivery of complex information. So that's true and accurate, yeah.
Thanks, Deirdre.
And there's a question there. Deirdre, do you want to read out from Anna Harrison?
Oh yeah, could you suggest ways to get involved? Anna, do you mean get involved in National Traveller MADS on a voluntary basis? I'm not sure which organisation you meant.
Or literacy, or just in general.
Or literacy, yeah. You can pop back in the chat or pop on your mic. Literacy. So Anna, you're probably aware of the education and training boards. I don't know if you've come across them in your local area, but they run the adult literacy services in Ireland. And it would be the nearest adult literacy service wherever you're living is probably the best start for you to just contact them and see if they're working with volunteers. They don't always, in every centre, they're not always working with volunteers, but we can share a map where you can search your closest adult literacy service, and we can send that to you, and then you can we have the phone numbers of the organisers in the area. And Leanne, thank you. Excellent timing. I love this timing that's going on today. Leanne has just popped in our feedback form for today's webinar. So if you have a few minutes to spare, we'd love to just hear, and it's really quick, genuinely 5 minutes. It just helps us to improve. And Aoife, my other colleague, these amazing colleagues we have, has just popped in that link to finding your local adult literacy centre. So Anna, that's where you would click in and look for that information. If you've any trouble, just let me know. I'll just throw up real quickly. Oh, sorry, Aoife. Foley, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to pop chat in there as well, as the adult literacy services are great, but not all of them in every county have a voluntary section. Yeah. So what I would also say is you can also talk to any of your community development groups in your local area, because they are always looking for people to help out with literacy stuff. It could be a youth group, it could be a women's morning, you know, there's lots of even more localized places that you can help out as well if the literacy, if there isn't a literacy, voluntary literacy service in your ETB area.